Dig everybody. My name is Emma Jane Leeson, and I'm the girl who tells stories about Johnny Magory. And in today's workshop, we're going to be having loads of crack learning about Irish heritage and wildlife, but in a super fun way by reading some of the Johnny Magory books. So I'm going to share my screen with you now, and I'll talk you through exactly what's going to happen today. So basically, I'm going to have a quick chat with you and let you know who I am. Then we're going to go ahead and we're going to read two Johnny Magory books. So we're going to be reading The Wild Water Race, this one here, and then we're going to be reading this one here called The Forest Fleadh Cheoil. We're going to be having a chat then about all the Hanafaha, or all the animals that are in the stories, and all about our super cool Irish heritage as well. And I'm also going to be playing a tune or two on my owl, Dog, or my tin whistle, basically, and you are going to be doing some dancing. So don't expect to be sitting down for all this. You won't be. But and also, I don't want to hear any giving out or any, I can't do Irish dancing, I don't know how to. I'm going to give you a lesson, and it is all you need to learn for basically dancing anywhere, everywhere across the world when you're older. So no excuses. So for now, anyway, you can sit down comfy. You can put on your listening ears. I'm going to have a quick chat with you about who I am, basically. So as I said, my name's Emma Jane. This little person here in a tractor is me about 30 years ago. I'm ancient, but basically I am from County Kildare. So, and I live outside of a little village called Prosperous, and I live in a place called Ballinafa in County Kildare. And I've lived in Kildare all of my life. But basically, when I was small and when I was growing up, I wasn't your typical girly girl. I was more of a tomboy and into dinosaurs and tractors and trucks and just generally up acting the devil and up to a bit of harm. But anyways, no harm done. But when we were growing up though, Mum used to read us stories every night going to bed. So myself, my sisters and my brothers. And then Dad would come in and Dad would actually tell us a story then. So I love a bit of storytelling. And we as Irish, by the way, are pure storytellers through and through. And it's something we can bring across the world with us and something we're really well known for. But Daddy would come in and he'd make up the story on the old Irish rhyme that goes like this. It goes, well, I tell you a story about Johnny Magory. Will I begin it? That's all that's in it. Well, some nights when we were bold, he'd finish with that. But more nights he'd actually go on and he'd actually make up these brilliant stories. But what he was doing was he was actually telling us all about all the amazing wildlife that lives on our doorstep here in Ireland. And then also then he was filling us with adventure, because the way he told those stories, we couldn't wait to get up the next morning and go outside and explore. And that's ultimately then why I wrote down some Johnny Magory stories when I had my eldest daughter, Lily. So this is Lily here. And that's my husband Dave, and then that's Layla, my youngest daughter, and then there's Evan up the tree, basically. But I wrote down my first book just for Lily, and anyway, now we currently have 5 Johnny Magory books, and we've another 2 on the way. So if you're ever thinking about maybe you want to be an author and you don't know where to start, the best place to start is just to start writing and keep drawing and keep having fun with it, because it is loads of fun. So we're going to kick off anyway without further ado, and I'm going to have a chat with you about the book I'm about to read. So this book here, The Wild Water Race, this was actually the 3rd story I ever published, and this storybook is all about our amazing Irish canals and the rivers, I suppose, that are around them, but all the wildlife as well then that lives around our canals and rivers. So basically, the Grand Canal runs by, it's very close to my house, in a place called Robertstown or Lowtown in County Kildare, is where we know it. And it's actually where this picture is taken. But down here anyway, the Grand Canal, it was built in kind of the 18th century, and it's 131 kilometres, and it stretches the whole way from Dublin across to the Shannon. So what's the difference between a canal and a river? Well, the hint is kind of there in that. So our canals were actually built, they were dug by shovels with men, with no machinery or anything like that that was around at the time. So the canals were over like 200 years old, and they basically were all dug by hand. But the reason we have canals is because they were built as water roads, I suppose is the handiest way to put it. So back then, there was no trains, no engines, no trucks, no airplanes, no nothing like that. So when it came to transporting goods, so say moving like food or Well, food would have been the main thing, but maybe building supplies or even beer. Actually, as well, Guinness is well known for its hand in helping with the canal. But the quickest way and the only way that you could get this stuff across the country was in a horse and carriage. Now, a horse and carriage can only carry so much stuff, as you can know, and it's not a whole lot like Reader. So they decided then to make these water roads because then they could put on big boats onto them, and the boats are called barges, basically, and they could use those barges then to carry an awful lot more stuff because it's not as heavy on water, and still then get the horses to pull them across the country. And that's basically why the canals were developed to begin with. So it was a quick water road the whole way from Dublin right across to the Shannon on the west. So we now have two major canals in Ireland. So we have the Grand Canal and we've also got the Royal Canal. And canals are buckets of fun. So if you've never been to the canal, make it your point to go. But this place here in Lowtown, by the way, I think is super special and it features in the book, but it's quite a common feature of the canal. So you can see down here, basically, underneath, so the canal is up here, right, on the road for the horse to pull it on. And then down here, you can see there's a bit of a river. And that river actually runs the whole way back to my house at Ballinafad Lake. But as you can see, the river goes the whole way underneath the canal. And that is called an aqueduct, okay? And there's aqueducts all across our country where they knew the canal was crossing over, say, rivers or existing maybe roadways or something like that that were there. So they had to build bridges to actually hold the water in the bridge and then let other stuff flow underneath it. Amazing, the most amazing piece of engineering. And we have loads of fun going down underneath the aqueduct because you can walk underneath the bridge. So you know you're walking underneath, there's a canal on top of you, which is super cool to do. So maybe it's somewhere anyway, you can come one day, maybe have a picnic and maybe see if you can find Johnny Magory. Now, as with all of our books as well, we've got a few animals at the end of it. So there'll be a bit of a quiz. And I know you're going to know half of these, obviously, straight away before we even talk about them. However, there might be one or two that you mightn't be so keen about yet. So have a listen in and we're going to have a chat about these amazing animals then after it. So I'm going to share my screen with you now and we will put up the book. Now, and if I wasn't on the last page, there we go. Okay, so this book, as I said, is called Johnny Magory and the Wild Water Race. Scroll down to the start. Here we go. So hopefully you can read along on the screen with me now as well. So I'll tell you a story about Johnny Magory, his sister Lily May, and their trusty dog Rory. He's clever too, at 3 and 7 years old. They're usually good, but they're sometimes bold. Now on most summer evenings, the family take a walk down by the Grand Canal where they sing and talk. The midgies are out in force, taking bites from everyone, but nobody really minds because they're having so much fun. They see their granddad Paddy making flower pots for his boat. Johnny and Lily May run over and snuggle into his old coat. Sure, look at Paddy says, will you join me on a cruise? There's a problem with a lock gate and we've no time to lose. Now, Johnny loves his granddad's barge where he can wander and roam. He's got a kitchen, a bathroom and 2 bedrooms in his floating home. So Mommy puts on the life jacket and Paddy cranks the engine to life. The kids love their orange life vests with the white reflector stripe. The canals were made years ago for barges, Paddy shouts, for a path through Ireland some merchants could get about. Their faithful horses would pull the barges full of cargo along, and the men would laugh and talk and sing a boatman's song. Now Johnny loves listening to Paddy as he stands and helps him steer, and he learns more about Ireland's canals each and every year. But then Johnny spots Mr. Otter waving like mad from the bank, and he somersaults into the water from a diving plank. We're going to have a race. Will you and Rory join in? That'll be grand, says Johnny. Sure, we might even win. Ahoy there, Paddy shouts as they approach the broken lock, and he ties up Coola the barge onto the black wooden block. Now Mammy and Lily May pick blackberries as the men start fixing the gate. Daddy warns Johnny and Rory, don't go wandering and come back late. I promise I'll be back on time, Johnny says to his smiling dad. He never means to get in trouble or to make his parents mad. Then Mr. Otter leads them down the steep bank to a special place, to a stream that runs under the canal to have a water race. The duck family are there with Heron and lots of frogs. And Dusty, the old barge horse, shows them a raft made out of logs. Now Dusty takes the thick rope. He's one of a mighty Irish team. He's going to pull Johnny and Rory down the shallow stream. Mr. Otter has a fine boat made of moss and twigs and rope, and the duck's boat's made of lily pads, and it's the fastest. Well, they hope. So Heron is at the starting line getting them ready to begin, and Miss Swan is at the finish line to see who will win. So Heron flaps his wings. On your marks, get set, go! And the race begins with everybody lined up in a row. Now Mrs. Pike joins in too, so the stream is pretty tight. But steady Dusty pulls them along, a job he's done all his life. Then Mr. Otter's boat gets tangled in the thick bulrush, and the ducks are so busy quacking they sail into a bush. Now Mr. Trout and Mrs. Pike, they swim so fast they're nearly there, but then they see a swarm of flies and start feasting elsewhere. But faithful Dusty keeps on going one slow step at a time, and Johnny shouts, "Hooray!" as they cross the finish line. Mrs. Swan says, "You're the winners, there's no shadow of a doubt." While Johnny rubs his horse's ears and laughs, "We're happy out." But then Rory hears Mammy shouting, so they have to make a run back up to the canal to tell Lily May about the bun. Now Mammy is fierce angry when they appear from up the slope. "You put the hard crosswords on me," she says, untying the rope. "I'm really sorry," says Johnny. "I didn't mean to be late." "Don't worry," said Paddy. "We've just finished fixing the gate." Now everyone gets back on the barge and Johnny sits beside Lily May. And as Mammy gets some berries and ice cream, he tells her about the day. So Lily May hears all about the race and all his exciting friends. He fills her in on Dusty, Heron, Miss Swan, and how it ends. And Lily May can't wait until she's old enough to go too. "Oh, I'm dying to join Johnny and Rory on the adventures they do." "Wish Macushla," Mammy says to her small daughter. "You'll have many more years to enjoy life on the water." Now when they get home, they brush their teeth and climb into their beds. And dreams of Ireland's magical waterways fill their tired heads. Johnny can't help wondering what his next adventure will be. And he promises Lily May, "I'll bring you along with me." So I really hope you enjoyed that story and learning all about our brilliant canals. And maybe actually, have you ever been on a barge trip before? Put your hands up. One or two? It's so much fun. Well, we're going to have a quick chat about these guys here. So this very first big, beautiful bird, can I get a Lavasus who knows what they're called? A heron. Yes, or a corvish, gosh, basically. But herons are, number one, absolutely beautiful. But number two, they're sometimes still called cranes. So people might say there's a crane, but that's actually incorrect because cranes went extinct here about 500 or 600 years ago. So we only have herons in Ireland now. So, and how you know it is a heron has that beautiful S-shaped neck, whereas a crane's neck is quite straight, basically up to its head. But these guys are, they're steeped in Irish history and in Irish mythology as well. And there's lots of brilliant stories about the herons. But they're ultimately the epitome of patience, right? So herons will stand all day on a bank or maybe in the water and wait for the fish to come by them. They don't go swooping looking for fish left, right, and centre. No, they will wait. And they are always known as being a super patient bird. But they make these huge, great big nests up in the tree branches, actually, which is funny because when you see the size of a heron, like they're quite big. So when you see them flying up to the nest, you're like, oh, how does that hold them? But anyways, it does. And you'll find herons all around our water in Ireland. So from our lakes to our rivers to our canals to even some by the sea, ponds. They have a bit of a penchant, by the way, for goldfish. So if you have a pond, be careful you don't get a heron coming close to you. But anyways, have a look for them if you haven't seen them before. They are truly beautiful. So the next guy we're going to talk about here is, can I get a Lavasus? Yes, it's a fish, but what type of fish is it? It is a pike fish, P-I-K-E. So pike are a super common breed of fish basically around Ireland, and they're actually pretty good hunters themselves. That's probably why they're so common. So they live everywhere from our lakes to our rivers, our canals, even some would be in the estuaries going into the sea. But with the pike, they start off quite small, right? But pike grow huge. Okay, so my daddy actually loves fishing. He's a great fisherman, and he brought home a pike years ago. And when he brought it home, he stood it up beside my brother, who was 10 at the time. So, and the pike was still bigger than him. It looked like a shark, so it did. But with the pike, how you can know a pike is they had these big, huge mouths and they had these big, ugly teeth that kind of go like this. So they're not the prettiest of fish, but they're very important. They're great hunters and great cleaners, and they really help the ecosystem in all of our water. But pikes are super popular and can go huge. So maybe you'll get to see one day if you go fishing, which is loads of fun. This next guy here, then, is quite a secretive one. So it is right, an otter, or a madra ishka, which actually translates to water dog. But our otters, they are quite plentiful, but they're actually quite hard to see. Now, when I'm talking to children in schools, I suppose I always get them to put up a show of hands to say, who thinks that the otter lives in the water all the time? Or who thinks that the water lives on the land, basically most of the time. And it's funny because there's a 50-50, but ultimately the otters are a mammal, so they do live on land and they nest on land and they'll have their baby otters on land, but they do spend a lot of time in the water because they love eating fish, basically. But the thing is with otters is when they get into the water, they just literally slink through the water and they don't leave many ripples right behind them. Whereas when I get in, I'm splashing all over the place and you definitely know I was in the water. But that's one of the reasons why I suppose otters are quite hard to see. But a great place in Ireland to actually see otters is in Kilkenny City. So if you stand on the bridge in Kilkenny City, you look down into the river, you have a good chance of spotting the otters there because it's one of the best viewing points across the country. Now, we will have a chat here then about this guy here. So this beautiful big couple, otherwise known as Dusty, right? And actually, before we even talk about Dusty, I'm going to have a quick chat with you about Rory Magory. So for anybody that's interested actually in illustrating or in drawing or in pictures, Kim Shaw, she's the lady that illustrates my books for me. Kim is super good at drawing because this dog here, actually, Rory, is based on a photograph of our old dog, Gary, and he's identical. She's so good. And then this horse here is actually a photo of my old horse, Dusty. So if you like drawing, it's super important to keep drawing because you could end up making your own books one day and being an illustrator like Kim, which is loads of fun to do. But this type of horse, though, Dusty, right? So as you can see, he's quite big and stocky and he's got big hairy legs, right? So he's all feathers basically going around his hooves. And ultimately what he is, well, if anyone knows the breed, shout it out. But Dusty, I suppose, is a cob or a workhorse, or they're sometimes known as plough horses, right? So they're a heavy set horse. So with them, though, these were the guys that would have been used years ago to pull the barges along the canals. So they're not like, say, some of your ones. So maybe like, you know, the thoroughbreds, you know, your racing horses, and they're tall and sleek and elegant and they're super fast, but they're not that strong. Whereas the working horses, I suppose, the heavier set horses, they're not that fast. They are super strong and they can tow and they can pull, and they have been used for centuries in farming, in transport, and of course then on our canals, right? So maybe one of the days you can have a look at them and see actually if there's any heritage festivals going on around the canals. Sometimes they set them up again just to show how good they were at pulling the barges before our engines were invented. And then obviously when engines were invented, there was no need for the horses to pull them then. But one of the cool things actually, if you go underneath a bridge on a canal, so if you can find a bridge basically on any of the canals in Ireland that you can walk along underneath, have a look at the walls of that bridge, because I bet you will find, like, basically on the corner of the wall where the stone goes like that and your canal is here, you'll find little grooves, right, that are about the size of your finger. And they're basically there from the ropes for years and years and years of the horses pulling the canals through underneath the bridges where the ropes wore down the wall, and you can actually put your finger into them, which is super cool to find. So let's see if we can do that one of the days. Now, the last thing here, everybody's favourite and everybody knows the locha or the mallard duck, right? So we have ducks all over Ireland, and the mallards are actually one of our biggest wild duck breeds, right? So with them, so the men have the beautiful green head and the kind of purpley reddy chest and the beautiful plumage, whereas the girls and the hen ducks have just nice plain brown colouring, right? So they are everywhere. and it's not hard to find a duck. But one thing I want to see if you can do, and maybe you can practice, this is something that took me all of primary school to perfect, is my duck voice, which goes like this. So now we see if you can do that, and if you can't do it, practice, because it's loads and loads and loads of fun to do. That's a great part of piece when you get older. So now we're going to go on. Excuse me, and we're going to read the next storybook, which is Johnny Magory and the Forest Flacule. So now, excuse me, Johnny Magory and the Forest Flacule. So a few different things I suppose to have a chat about this book firstly. So firstly, can I get a hands up? Who knows what a flacule is? Brilliant, some of you do. Well, fla means competition and music means or ciole means music. So a flacule is a music competition, right? So in Ireland, we have this brilliant festival that runs every year and has run every year since 1951 called the Flacule na Héireann, right? And what it is that people from all across the world, who don't have to be just Irish people, people from all across the world come together and they will play Irish music or sing Irish music or do Irish dancing, right? And it's nearly like our GAAs, where there might be smaller kind of like town flas, and then there might be a county fla, and then there might be a provincial fla, and then eventually you get to Flacule na Héireann, which is the All Ireland, which is the be all and end all of all music players. So if you can get to Flacule na Héireann playing music, excellent. But anyway, if you're not into playing music, do attend a fla at some point though, because they are the best crack, and you will hear so many different varieties of music and see so many different varieties of dancing and hear so many different varieties of singing. It's just, they're brilliant, right? And the second thing to point out about this book is that the illustrations look a little bit different from the last one, and that is because it was illustrated by a man called Don Conroy. So maybe some of you heard of Don Conroy, basically Draw with Don. So Don used to be on the tellies when I was small, and he used to teach people all over Ireland all about wildlife, but then how to draw them as well. So everyone loved him. So that's why this looks just a little bit different. One other thing then, before we really get into it, is that within this book, there's lots of different names for the characters of the animals. So we have everything from Brayson the field mouse to Chiron the deer to Leah the kestrel to Rihanna the wren, and so on and so forth. Now, you might be thinking they are a bit of weird names for animal characters. However, it was from a competition that we ran last year. So they are actually real life little big people like you guys who actually got into the book and had a character named after them in the book. So just to put that out there. One other thing, there is a spit oak hiding on every page in this book. Some of them are super simple, one or two are a bit harder to find. Have a look and see if you can find the spit oak. Okay. Now, just quickly, actually, this book was inspired by a place in County Kildare called Donaghadee. So can I get hands up if anyone's ever been to Donaghadee in County Kildare, Donaghadee Forest? Well, it's beautiful, and it's a huge old estate, so it's a massive big woods basically, and there's the ruins of a castle on it that belonged to the Aylmer family, and the last woman, actually Miss Caroline, she lived there until 1935. But now it's a National Heritage Area, basically. So, and there's loads and loads of historical features on it. So there's like an ice house, which we kind of call the dungeon if I'm being honest. There's a boathouse. There's an avenue of lime trees that were planted in the 19th century. It's beautiful. So maybe one day you can come to Kildare and go to Dundee Forest if you haven't already. Okay? Now, I am going to stop this and I'm going to share the book here now, which is Johnny Magory and the Forest Flacule. And it's the same, actually, those animals you're after seeing. We've got a few animals in this that I want you to try pay attention to, and we'll have a chat about them after it, okay? So now, so I'll tell you a story about Johnny Magory, his sister Lily May, and her trusty dog Rory. His clever two are 5 and 8 years old. They're usually good, but they're sometimes bold. Now, one of their favourite places to go is their local park, to play amongst the trees and plants from daylight through to dark. They pack a picnic and a ball and change into their best exploring gear to wander along the paths and forest trails that they love so dear. Ma finds the perfect spot on the grass to set up for the day, and they play some football with their friends, and Rory leads the way. And when the game is finished, they dig into their yummy food, Tasty baked brown bread and cheddar cheese really sets the mood. Now, Ma and Dad lie back to read their books and relax into their day. And Johnny and Lily May explore the park with Rory where it's safe to play. Around the yew tree down by the lake, near the castle room to a hidden place. A circular clearing surrounded by giant beech trees, a really magic space. Walking through the undergrowth, Lily May spots Kyron the deer. They gallop over to him and Kyron says, "Didn't you hear? Today's the day of our flageola. I've been practicing all week. My bowron sounding really sweet," he says with an excited eek. Now, just to show you actually before we go on, this here is a bowron. So for anyone that's never seen one, a bowron is a drum basically in Irish traditional music. So it's a circle like this, and then it has skin across the front, which is actually goat skin usually. But how it's played is you can have a beat or stick, or if not, you play with your knuckles and you do a rhythm when you play. See, so brilliant little instrument. So now, a flageola is a music competition for every musician to play Irish tunes on their instruments, a really special tradition. Go he top, Johnny shouts, taking his tin whistle in his hand. I've practiced loads of jigs and reels really hard with my school band. I hear them, says Lily May, flying through the whispering leaves, while she pulls back a holly bush and is amazed by what she sees. Maeve Fox is playing fiddle, while Quiva Red Squirrel tunes her harp. And Joseph Badger plays accordion and practices his flats and sharps. Now, what is Johnny Magory doing here in this picture? He is climbing a tree. Can I get hands up again? Who likes climbing trees? Brilliant. Well, the barn owl is going, should he really be climbing this high? Well, Layla Barn Owl sits high up in the tree, listens with a keen ear. She's the flageola judge and will carefully score every tune she hears. Now, Johnny climbs high up the giant oak to sit with Layla Barn Owl, and as Danny Robin plays the spoons, Rory dances with a howl. Now, Talia Kestrel takes centre stage, playing the great Cooley's Reel, and Lily May set dances with Oliver Duck tapping at her heel. Then, Brayson Fieldmouse on his flute steals the show, playing a hornpipe, and everyone dances amongst the trees and shouts, "Flies the life!" Well, Hayden Pine Martin belts out a jig on his trusty Irish uilleann pipes, and tiny Rihanna Wren dances along, showing off her delicate feathered stripes. Then Ben Crow slows things down, singing Roisin Dove and old Shannon's song. Then Joey Magpie plays his shiny whistle and brings the beat back along. Layla Owl announces the winner, and Maeve Fox squeals "ouch" with delight. Flageola's over. They all say "slán," but then Johnny gets a fright. He's climbed so high up the massive oak, he really can't see his way down. "You need to save the day, Lily May," he yells to his sister on the ground. "Okay, Rory and I'll get Manda. Be careful not to fall. Come on, Rory, let's run quickly. We're on an adventure after all." So they speed back through the undergrowth and by the castle ruin, down by the lake, around the yew. They'll be there really soon. "Ma, Dad, you need to come quickly. Johnny's stuck in the oak tree." "Told him not to climb so high," Dad says. "Come on, let's go see." Now, when you turn the page in the real book, it looks like this. So it's a big, giant tree, basically, that spreads up across the two pages. On the computer screen, it looks a bit different. So Johnny's waiting with Layla Owl, and he waves when they appear. And Ma and Dad give out to him for climbing so high in the air. "Really sorry," Johnny says. "I didn't realise I'd gone so high." "It's okay," Ma says as she starts to climb, "but you're nearly at the sky." Now, Ma and Dad climb up to Johnny and help him to come down to the ground. Then they spend the afternoon playing in the oak, swinging around and round. Now, at home that evening after supper, Johnny reads aloud Lily May's favourite book, The Owl Who Couldn't Give a Hoot, as they're curled up in their cosy reading nook. Then he gives her a special present from Layla Owl, a beautiful white feather. "It's bralum too," Lily May smiles. "I'll dream of our first adventure together." So now, I really hope you enjoyed that. And for anyone that maybe wants to learn about the Irish, you can see we have our Cúpla Focal explained there. But anyways, let's get straight into this, and we're going to have a quick chat about these animals. Before you stand up and do a little bit of Irish dancing, because I'm going to play a little jig on my whistle, okay? So we have this birdie up here. So can I get a hands up? Who knows what this bird is? It's one of the smallest birds in Ireland. It's like about that size. It's brown, quite common, also known as the king of the birds. It's the wren or the draylen, right? So basically, the wren is known as the king of the birds, even though they're tiny, because one day, years and years and years and years and years ago, all of the birds in the world lined up to have a competition to see who could fly the highest, and then whoever could fly the highest will be named the king of the birds, right? So you had everything there. Now, I mean everything. You had obviously the wren was there, there was robins there, pigeons there, seagulls there was eagles there, vultures there, herons there, the whole lot, right? So anyway, so they all lined up, and in the count of three, everyone started flapping. So one, two, three. So they all start flapping, and they all start going higher and higher and higher and higher and higher, until eventually was the golden eagle. He was the highest above everybody, just soaring, right? And he was like, ha ha ha, I'm the king of the birds. But what had the clever wren done? Well, the wren was after been hiding underneath the eagle's wing. And basically, when the eagle couldn't fly any higher, the wren came out and went flap, 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 and flew higher than the eagle. And that is how the wren became the king of the birds. So now, clever little bird. This guy here then, oh, another one of everybody's favourite. This here is the Madra or the Shunnock, basically the fox. Everybody loves Foxy Loxies. And can I please get a hands up who has read Fantastic Mr. Fox by Roald Dahl? It is one of my all-time favourites. I love it. And Roald Dahl definitely caught just how clever these foxes are. So basically, foxes are super common across Ireland. And they're very opportunistic when it comes to eating, and that's what they're known for. So, yes, they live out in the countryside, but they'll also live right bang in the cities. And you can be rest assured, if you leave out a bin with some food in it, these guys are going to get at it. They're very clever. But they all live in a beautiful little den underground, and that is where the mammy, the vixen, and then the daddy is the dog. They keep their cubs down there for maybe about 9 to 12 weeks after they're born, because when their beautiful little cubs are born, they're completely blind and have no fur at all. So mom has to stay down there with them and get them good and strong and healthy before they all venture out into the world and come up out of their dens and then roam around Ireland like we're all so used to seeing them. So if you haven't read Fantastic Mr. Fox, you need to go read it. Now, we've the badger here then. So for anyone that's ever read my Magical Wild book, you know that I love the badgers, but I have the badger in this book again. So Oscailga, the badger, is known as a rock, right? And badgers are really big. Not really big, but I suppose be the size of like a medium-sized dog, basically. So, but anyways, they only come out at nighttime. Same as fox, actually. So they're nocturnal creatures, is what they're called. And these guys live in sets underneath the ground. So kind of similar to your fox's den. But the badger sets, actually, they kind of pass them down from generation to generation. So some of them can be like 200 or 300 years old, like big old country houses. And some of them can be maybe 3 or 4 miles long underneath the ground as well. But a cool experiment to see a badger actually is if you can find out where a set is, best thing to do is ask somebody older in your community, they'll know where there's a badger set. And if you can go there with a parent at dusk, so just as it's getting dark, and with some peanut butter and a knife, and then if you're told where the set is, outside the set, maybe get the peanut butter and smear it onto some branches or some trees or some rocks or whatever it is outside the set, and then sit down and go and hide and wait, because these guys will come up out of their set going, and then that's it. They love peanut butter and they can smell it a mile off too. So it's a super cool way for you to actually get to see badgers in real life. This beautiful bird here then is our kestrels. So kestrels actually were quite common there for one point in Ireland, not as common anymore though. The kestrel have this beautiful high-pitched shriek, and they are just the most amazing soarer and flyers. So they're also a bird of prey, so meaning that they will sometimes eat berries if they need to, but as a natural rule, they'll actually eat smaller little mammals or smaller little birds as well. But maybe after this, you can YouTube the shriek of a kestrel. It's brilliant to hear it. And talking about shrieks, actually, this guy here, Scragach Religa, are barn owls. So probably one of the most mysterious and probably one of the most loved birds in Ireland. So barn owls only come out at night. Obviously, they're owls. All owls really only come out at night. But the barn owl is actually He's got an awful lot to do with our Irish story about the banshee. Has anybody here ever heard about the banshee before? Or we're not going to go in and talk about the banshee too much today, but after this, I'm going to show you on the directory, basically on the Johnny Magory website, to click where to click to find out the noise that the barn owl makes. Because between the barn owl actually and the fox at night time, that's actually where an awful lot of our stories of the banshee came from because of this, because they shriek at the top of their lungs. And if you hear a barn owl shriek on a dark lane in the middle of nowhere in the middle of the night, let me tell you, it'll put the hair standing on the back of your head. So, and finally then, one of my favourites is down here, and this is the pine marten, or the cat fawn. Now, can I get a hands up who's ever heard of a pine marten before? Couple, brilliant, but not a lot. Well, these guys are actually a native Irish species. So they are like the size of a cat, a good sized cat, like a large cat basically, but they have this beautiful chocolatey brown coat, and they always have a kind of a cream spot here underneath their neck, on their chest there like that, and this lovely long sleek tail, right? And the pine martens, they're nocturnal as well. Most of the cool ones are, right? But they actually are helping. So, well, firstly, they were massively endangered and there really wasn't a whole lot of them left. But there's been an awful lot of work put into the pine marten to bring back up their numbers, which is working, thankfully, because we don't want any of our animals to go extinct. But this guy is actually helping inadvertently another really endangered Irish mammal, which is the red squirrel. So the red squirrel, basically, there's not a whole lot of these left at all, because of their cousin, the grey squirrel, coming over from the UK basically and taking over, right? But pine martens eat squirrels, right? That's what they like to eat, lots of squirrels. However, the grey squirrels are twice as big as our red squirrels, and they're also very brave. Our red squirrels are small and they stay up high in the tree. Grey squirrels bigger, slower, and down on the ground, and they're therefore easier for the pine marten to catch and eat. So basically, by the pine marten eating, he's eating more grey squirrels by a long shot than he is red squirrels. So he's actually helping our beautiful Iraroos come back. So now, right, well guys, what we're going to do is we are going to play a song on the tin whistle, and you are going to dance, okay? So I don't care if you've never done Irish dancing before. You don't need lessons, by the way. Nonsense. Some people think you need to go to lessons for years. It doesn't make any difference. Literally, all you have to do is stand up straight, right? Put your arms down by your side and then point one leg out in front of you, okay? And then the minute I start playing, you just kick your legs and arms like a mad joke and go for it. That's it. Nothing more to it. Actually, the other little thing is, every time for the rest of your life, when you hear an Irish song finished, if maybe you're at a flat Ceol, for instance, or maybe you're at a session in a pub or something like that when you're older, and you hear Irish music being played, when the person finishes, you have to make this noise and do this action. It goes like, you, right? Forever and ever and ever. Okay? So I want everyone, Chastity Sue's, arms down by your side, toe pointing in front of you, and on the count of three, I'm going to play the Kerry polka. That's what I'm going to play. And you're going to dance, okay? So a hain, a do, a tree. That was brilliant, Jonathan. Well done. So now that's something that you can bring around the world with you, because Irish people are known for how brilliant we are at dancing and playing music and singing and having a crack. So well done. So now guys, so that's basically it for today's workshop, but I just wanted to quickly show you how you can get onto the Johnny Magory website and get onto all of the cool wildlife directory we have there, and then there's loads of free outdoor guides basically with experiments that you can do outside. So when you click onto johnnymagory.com, you'll see this branch of a tree here, okay? And then when it slides across, there's this thing here called free fun stuff. So you click on that, and that will bring you to this orange page, right? So you can see here the very first block is the Irish Wildlife Directory. So when you click on that, you get this green page here. And this is where, say, for instance, you can click on the barn owl, or you can click on the chinook or the fox, or you can click on, there's loads of them basically there. But if you click on them, you get lots of facts, but there's also links then to the videos and to the noises that the animals make, which is cool to listen to, okay? And the next thing then is actually, when you're on this page, is the Outdoor Explorer guides. So when you click the Outdoor Explorer guides, there's lots of different things. So you can learn how to play rounders, you can download experiments, nature hunts, all that kind of stuff is there for you. And then finally, for anybody who maybe can't play the whistle yet and would like to learn to play the tin whistle, we've got a free little booklet there that you can download that tells you exactly how you can play the tin whistle like Johnny Magory. And it's super simple, and it's a great outline for bring with you anywhere in the world. So that's it, everybody. Thank you so much for listening. You've been brilliant. Go and enjoy the day, and keep reading, and keep having fun, and keep imagining, and enjoy everything. Take care, Slán. Bye.